Well, hello, hello, hello. Happy Friday, y'all. How's it going out there? I know, I like a woo. Good evening and welcome to the continuation of our Friday night celebrations and this evening's Fellow Friday. My name is Sharon Poley and I am the Executive Director of the Fine Arts Work Center. Here at FAWC, we support artistic freedom, nurture creative connections, and make possible artistic achievements that are important to the larger culture. And this is our absolute favorite time of the year here at 24 Pearl Street, because now is the time when we turn the keys over to the fellows who are in residence with us, and we get to see all of the amazing work and hear the amazing work that they're sharing with us. So from now until April 19th, we will host a series of Friday evening gatherings, including artist talks, readings, and gallery exhibitions. There's a full schedule at the back of the room, and we hope that you'll join us for each and every one of our events. Before we begin tonight's reading, I want to take a moment to celebrate and to invite you all to join me in a round of applause for our visual arts fellow, Oscar Morel. Oscar's exhibition, Tokamano, is on view in the Hudson D. Walker Gallery, which is right through that door at the back of the room. And if you haven't had a chance to check out the exhibition and the beautiful work that's on view, I highly encourage you to do so after tonight's event. Congratulations, Oscar. Yeah, let's do it again. Let's do one more. I also want to take a moment to welcome a past fellow who is returning and in residence with us through the Pollock-Krasner Foundation. We're so thrilled to welcome Anju Kang back with us. Anju will be in residence for the next week or so. So a huge thank you to all of our staff who work so hard to make all of our work possible, including tonight's event. I just would love to ask the FAWC staff in the room to give a wave so that we can all say a huge thank you. Jerome, David, Naya, Josh, Nat, Joe. This team works really tirelessly, and we're very, very grateful. So as we care for one another, we recognize that COVID and other winter illnesses are still with us, and so there are masks at the back of the room for anyone who would like one. With all of the housekeeping business out of the way, it is my pleasure to invite writing fellow Lindsay Miles to the stage for our first introduction of the evening. Thank you, everyone. Hello. I'll just get right into it. Reading J.J. Starr-McClain, I am struck by a devotion to sound, a ceaseless rhythm that carries the reader along as if on a horse. In one of her poems, the resemblance between poet and horse is explicitly entertained. The speaker in J.J.'s poetry is both faltering, fragile as an eyelid, to use her words, and bold, come on my face slick as a ghost. The speaker is deeply embodied and embedded in the natural world. Just ask J.J. about the different varieties of grass native to the Midwest. Her pride in her Midwestern origins is refreshing. Far from blind allegiance or arrogance, hers results in a poetry that burrows down and opens out, that observes with a warm and fearless eye. In Day Trip with Missing Binky, she writes, she liked the fields this way and up close. They come up with tassels swaying gold-beamed windsocks. Reading J.J.'s work, I get the feeling if there is a God, he's a woman, in her words, weathered as a mailbox. Traversing multiple poetic forms, Day Trip with Missing Binky sees couplets carved up further with slashes,
concerning whether or not I'm a horse pads short single-line stanzas with indented stanzas of varying lengths. JJ's poems are keenly alive. To pull from one of her poems again, they're green so bright you'd think the whole field of fruit ripe, enough to bite into. I'm so glad she's offering us some of her poetry to bite into tonight. Her bio is as follows. JJ Starr-McClain is a poet from Chicago and is currently based in Springfield, Massachusetts, and here in Provincetown. Her work has appeared in the Common, Four-Way Review, Juked, the Journal, and elsewhere. She studied at the NYU Creative Writing Program and has received support from Wesleyan University and the community of writers. Please join me in welcoming JJ Starr-McClain to the stage.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay, so I'm just gonna start first. Not only am I pregnant, I'm on more hormones, like the synthetic ones, so I'm like extra hormonal and probably going to cry. So cry with me if you dare. So I'll try to make it through without crying, but you know, life is emotional. Thank you so much, Lindsay. That was just so sweet, and I do love grass, and I really appreciate it in so many ways. And we had a little mini reading amongst the writers and and fellows widely as well, just like to practice. And in my brain, I was like, "Don't talk about grass. Don't do it. Don't do it." And then I got up here and I was like, "Grass," you know. And then afterwards, Sasha, another fellow, was like, "I also think about grasses." So I was like, I've really found such a lovely group of people here. So thank you to all of my fellows for your community and fellowship, and to Falk for, of course, hosting us and creating this space for us, and for Provincetown for supporting Falk, for supporting arts, for being artist yourself, and it's such a warm, welcoming place to be. Before I get into my poems, I just want to read just a short statement. I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and it just made me feel inspired to just say something in honor of my friend Alyssa, and also just in honor of all of us. In recent months, we've witnessed acts of terror, genocide, mass shootings, gendered violence, and more. Tonight and in days to come, vigils will be held across the US and Canada in honor of Oklahoma non-binary teenager and Choctaw descendant Nex Benedict. Sometimes it feels like we live in a state of constant tragedy and injustice, and that's because we do. We are lucky, I am lucky, to live, if even temporarily, in a place that honors diversity in mind, body, and spirit. And at gatherings such as these, we come together to honor unrestricted self-expression so that collectively and in community, we can witness, make sense of, and honor life. Briefly, and if only in defiance of reality, we harbor ourselves in this safe space. When we leave, we re-enter a world hell-bent on exploitation and destruction, ours and of those we love. In an interview, Nex's mother said, "Nex had a light in them that was so big, I want their light to keep shining for everyone. So as we gather and when we leave, let's carry that light, Nex's and the light of all victims named and those never named, and find every way we can to bend the arc of history toward justice." And now, for Nex too. And now some poems. A little bit of a primer is that the poems are going to move between like a traditional enough looking poem and then what's known as an erasure. So you can see it's just a couple of letters and words. And the erasures, it's set up in a way to sort of create a dialogue between myself and my mother. The erasures are of a series of emails that are both, some of them happy, some of them kind of angry, between my mother and myself, all taken from her writing. And so I'll try to kind of switch sides so you can know who's speaking. So this is me. We'll start with me. You're just so darn cute. She tugged up the cheeks of my swimsuit, shown 2 small pairs, fleshy and bright, bookending the neon green fabric. This was the 90s, my first 2-piece, and I thought I was a big girl. Despite every comment about my size, petite, skinny, thread and thimble thin, string bean. Strangers would say so, and that I was pleasingly blonde, curly, a little Shirley with a temple, a future temptation. She wanted me to claim what had been taken from her body too young. She wanted me to claim it by showing it off. Flaunt it if you got it, even if you're 6. I loved her then, abandoning myself. I loved her the way a dog pulls meat from a bone, the eyes twin flames. Just another animal. She said, "I love you," to anyone, my mother. Oh, thank you. And then my mother speaking. Well, so I think, it's obviously to me also, but, my mother. It was, I thought, compassion that would remove this ugliness, as if these things just one day set like a sun. Her towel, she hangs the door for her hair. For her hair, she towels it, sprays dry with air. For air, she smokes it, long-stemmed and gold-ringed. For heat, she lights the hair, makes it curl in short barrels. Hair picked, made thick, an aquanet and stiff. Oh yes, aquanet, its turquoise body so pretty. For so pretty, she made dust stroke on her face. For so her face, so mine. There see it lace thin, see it blue and rosette, those marks and pecks, those hair little red lines, her cheeks, her unsheltered head. I think it's an accumulation of things. Faster and faster I go, seeking no one. But for love, I often confused you for me. No longer. I have maybe 10 cigs, certainly not enough for all this want, all this landscape and architecture of plunder. That's my baby. She wasn't sleeping by then. Her mother came to stay with us and brought me out to pull weeds, our only crop lobes of violet and the downy heads of dandelion. I pulled them bare-knuckled, doused the soil with herbicide as she swayed behind me, clicking false teeth. Your mother needs patience, click. If she'd just give her troubles to Jesus, click, click. Though he swears it wasn't him who smashed those porch lights, my brother's brought home by the cops again. My mother demurs, speaks so like a girl, a little one, that I was afraid. Her mother speaks of illness, and later tells my brother he'll rot while patting the cushion of the couch for me to sit. That early time when my mother first dislodged herself, unplugging the phone jack for days, tucking her body into the couch where she didn't sleep but stayed all night watching whatever airs so late, smoking her pack to the very last and clapping a new one against her wrist in rhythmic fives, twisted off the cellophane like the peel of an apple before pulling back the foil to 20 white moons. She rose only to empty the ashtray, and her mother had me fiddle with clasps around her fragrant wrists, care for the polish on each nail, or on the nail of each toe, because beauty would always be necessary. And anyways, wouldn't everything blow over like a house? All my desire, a disappointment. What can I say? Sometimes the best life is one that makes no promises. Everything, it seemed, was meant to be taken from me. My notebooks, my mother, everything I owned or thought I owned, save some clothes and a duffel bag. The evidence of my life departed. What I assumed made a life, its remnants a proof of attendance. I was daily present. I was here, wherever here was. So, cobbling it all back together, assembling sentiment out of what was remembered, this felt inherently meaningless, which is to say, I was the loss. Nothing would do but befriend my own emptiness. Outside the kitchen window, rain hovered in a mist as autumn's orange temperament blushed the trees. A buck larger than a bronco lazed across the yard, reading designs in the wind. Then he slipped as a needle through the thick hem of the wooded lot, teeming with ATV trails and beware hunting signs. The grass was so vibrant, green wounded my eyes. The fractured linoleum so cold on my feet, they stung until I liked it, until either I swept them under me or let the cold have me open and loose me to the keening wild. So beautiful, so final, so very sorry, so honorable as a wound. I made forgiveness with anything. I lashed a prayer to my heart. I see a woman who looks like you and it makes me stop. You're not even dead yet, but some days it feels that way. I'm sad about it. I am. It's not something I put on my wish list. I don't like thinking about how far away you are from me. I don't just mean I haven't seen you. Why shouldn't we have formed a family without you? Don't we all need one? You pleased to pain me. You sought my penance, love without me. Not once have I asked for your shattering. My hurt for your missing is filed soft with a few smokes, pulling it in and exhale, exhale. In my mind, I see the bags deflated, squeezing from the bottom up. I see you as you once were to me, my heart a little stone pumping cold into the night. I fill with longing for the earth to be healthy again, and this helps me forget. People carry holiday gift bags, though January is halfway through. Funny what will linger, hanging about the wrist, sparkling as if it's still new. I will not defend my past, ruled by broken responsibility, you say. I tried my best. Love is not conditional. It is not. I thought, stupidly, you would be happy. I am complete. But you steal my healing away. We all have choices. My choice is to move on. I will not be battered against my past, myself, or your demons. There are so many places to be, to pass through on a long drive, all so exact and particular, careless asphalt faltering distinctly, potholes crumbling inward, seeds of common weeds escaping on the wind. Inside the rest stops, Pepto-pink bath tiles with resting damselfly. Outside, the others who've come, slung with shoulder bags, cylindrical cups. I see them and it's a drug to me. I'm happy now, with so few anxious mornings. The midday sun is mostly sun again, the thoughts of suicide only memories. Still, I dread desire, and though beyond many horizons, I'm not beyond your goneness, as your goneness only sets a story of your leaving in your place when you leave. This morning, I watched quaking aspen, wondering if you've seen them. I watched the leaves turning in the wind like minutes turning in a flip clock, so mesmerizing anyone would be paused by their disco, feel the glinted light in their chest, just as I was to hear your car crawling up the driveway, to see you come through the door in a flurry of coats, unpack yourself, unhook the gadgetry of your bra, and rub the lingering symmetric ruts before you pulled the pink nightgown over your head, clicked your ankles to the couch, and slipped into it. The rug just so, the ashtray just so, a blanket resting on the arm of the couch, your children fighting for the crook of your knee, cat on the spine of the backrest, stripping hairspray from your hair. There never was enough of you, was there? Did you know how we brimmed with need? You told me your children taught you to love, which is what I was thinking about during the lecture last night, a poet asking, "What is love?" without any hint of self-consciousness, applauded for his domestic vulnerability. Perfect. Exactly. The wounds of men sometimes seem made of holier things. All this toil to render you here faithfully, but what do I know of faith? I think you'll be safer in my pages than doing your best, wandering, breathless to escape your own shadow. A man smoking with me outside the lecture tells me I'm lucky to have something to write about. At that time, I'd been loosened by emotional drainages, thrummed in metropolis syncopate, my hands, my face sunbitten and dangerous. I felt dangerous, felt the cleansing power of anger rise in my throat, but dragged again on my smoke, stubbed it out against the wall, and returned my body to the lecture hall. I think of your nylon legs, your ears dressed in twisted gold hoops, the cold damp of your skin, how you set to contain what was done to you, and in doing so, snared your own leg. For a year, you bought nothing but cigarettes, Slim Fast, and Diet Coke. Stole yourself away to cry in the shower alone. It's common to think you can hide from your children. Have I told you now I can cry at anything? My treatment made me emotionally lidless, exposed, prone now to feel, trained now to name it. I swear, when I was young, I believed everything about you beautiful. But that was when I knew what beauty was. Others whispered about the hemlines of your clothes, the act of letting oneself go, but your body has always been a gift to me. In any case, the spring has brought on too much rain. The nights remain cold late in the month of your birth, the same month in which we stitched the final matter of my lungs and brain. It said skin must shed a fine wool to make room for permanent hair. There are so many ways to imagine you here, and though it may not seem, I tried to do so tenderly. How long will this go on? I asked the last therapist I couldn't afford. She passed me a box of stiff tissues, smiled sideways. Is it a barb of helix gone out of place? Sitting at my table, the wine all drunk, but I'm sober. Do I have a right to feel this way? Once I wrote to hear the music. Now I write to make you stay. I say again and again and again and again, I have been through enough. I've been as honest as I know how. I made choices to protect you. You have no idea the cost, and you betray me. I prayed fervently. I already asked. There is no forgiveness. Foxes run borders of vision, draping moss, calling birds. It was long before I felt the cold depress my dress and through thread paired ivories. What it was I was thinking, I hadn't said. The feeling again come over me, dreams of children every night. Looking like you, we sang the Kyrie, made luciferous corners echo woozy. All our prayers to a God unearthed, a God who is and is and is, nothing more. Dear Lord, my fervent asking made nothing change. My condition, always the same, the same, the same. You came to see what they looked like. Their hair, grown longer than expected, fell between your fingertips as the sunrise caught mist in its yellow beak. Worms thrust belly up in the damp leaves were soon devoured by common grackles, whose iridescent plumage shimmered like heat, their blue heads aflame on the tip of a black lighter. All this fog, this awesome aliveness, akin to a bone, to blackbirds dancing over grass. I used to be able to take it, but now, the starting sun, the rusty wind, the peopled sky. Back in days of training bras, when I first laid before my mind this abyssal stretch from shores of Fox to San Joaquin, there was nothing I could see. I could not picture Badlands, nor Mondo skies set against the rippling, inspired earth, red as the throat of a hummingbird dipping its beak under the waving skirts of yucca flowers, nor the flowers clustered thick on their erected limb, nor limb itself, the terminal panicle, tender with flowers, as its neighbor's shrub's tight-bunched head is swarmed to life by bees, erupting from its petticoat of pastel green and lance-like leaves. I could not see behind it all, those oblong bluffs, ridged and bluish in the dusk, those running birds within the brush, nor perceive the mercy of a cleavage, gathering rain, the frailty in a slope's angle, nor witness broad trusses of ground scrubbed and fragrant, its dust alive, skipping over smoothed crests of terrain, as one coyote calls through a nightfall blotted in starlight, hushing the insects, the cooling dark briefly filled with no other music. No, I never thought like that you'd leave. For years I've wondered, how could you really drive those 36 hours straight through? 2 children left behind, a third some freight on your ship, as what seemed endlessly west shrank, then passed behind you. Considering the sleeplessness, the narcotic will to be loved, considering the depleted loneliness of single motherhood, the revolving hospital doors, I begin to understand. Yes, I begin to understand, leaning toward it, one hand clutching my throat. I think of you at some gas station, pausing on your way back to the U-Haul, everything I'd ever owned packed into its cubic thorax, and also snuffling the cab's footwell, the dogs I never saw again. You in a nightgown and flip-flops, no bra, your hair alight in the amber corona of a lone sodium lamp swallowing night at the edge of the asphalt. You looking up, considering the shape you wanted to give your children and what you actually drew. You made a new idea of the world inside us. It took me a long time to accept, and as much as we were yours, we were, like you, deferrable, worked into a counterpoint of some other hero's journey. How long have I feared the desert and its arid rhapsody? Or is it fear to want what you had wanted, another way to become you? Or fear to see up close the pilgrimage for which I became dispensable and later another perpetrator shepherding you into the corners of your mind? I've been traded for another man's daughter, and still I will exalt you. Mother, I want to work to the other side of forgiveness, but was not taught to consume my own grief. So I curl my hair without your watching, learn the world and its hard labyrinths without your watching, plan for a future ripe with child, imagine the loss and expansion of the self without your watching. The real work of motherhood, explains Locke, begins with trust. I'm afraid, Mother, always to be without you. I'm forever devastated, it seems, and all this wishing garnered me nothing from the soil, and from the syrinx of an owl seized no thing. I had abstained from the justice I may have been due, from the sovereignty of my injured name, abstained too from the ascendancy that belonged to me. Thrice I peeled the skin off my forearms and tugged one by one by one by one the hairs from my very own head, as if pain could cure pain. Oh, Mother, I love you as the oak loves fires on the plain. My waiting to start my life has wasted me. Still, I look, see, thrushes, swans, condors. Back in the old church, the one where parishioners couldn't remember my name was Jessica, not Jennifer. Another Jennifer I became, carrying the baby to the narthex when the cries rang off the altar. Not my baby, but seeing a girl with an infant in a stroller, people could be mistaken. Those sorts of things, they did happen. In the old church, things were done the old way, chanting liturgy from the soft pages of a scarlet book where Jesus judges the quick and the dead. The Lord blesses and keeps you. Once I could sing them without reference, pluck a festival canticle whole from some faraway place. The old songs were simple. Hosannas bloomed from the nave, Kyries quavered on every lip. Praise and mercy, mercy and praise. Some silences demand you render sanctuary from wood and stone. But I don't recall why I'm telling you this, especially when, each morning, a red-winged blackbird cries to me from his lifeless perch, the branch overhanging my parking spot. My mother is sick. Lord, have mercy. The spring is dry. Christ, have mercy. The old words and the new words never mean the same thing. The Lord either protects or keeps. The Platte River, running with silt, is already low in May, and the neighbors' horses are down to the ribs, tearing at the grass. In faith, I pray for you. Sometimes we aren't aware of our impact. Are you? I think of you free, a song, a night that cloaks you. I'm not a victim. All my struggles might also one day envelop you. A noise, a name, the setting, the smells, the particulars take me with you. What was that way to keep demons away? I fasten my mind to you. Those who don't heal seek the temporary. Understand me, there is no other, no I, no you. When did I start loving affliction as a companion? What meaning did I leave to you? I'm exhausted. Symptoms, short-term disability, long-term disability, medication costs. This thing attacked me. You don't believe me, do you? Jessica, I thought of you and knew you would seek after. Try to rest. If this is to end, let it. Can you? After my mom died, everything became a death. Even the sun broke the neck of night and her flimsy stars. Everything would continue to never know me, as I would never know it. 5 years after the second time she left, she took her fourth husband, called me at work to say she was leaving again tomorrow. Don't worry, she said. He's different. Ultimately, it was not forgiveness that gave me peace. Instead, my heart gave up the bone from its mouth and laid it at the foot of its master. And after my mom died, which was shortly after I gave birth to that little one back there, I think a lot of writers, artists, we go to the thing that we create for solace, and suddenly it was like eating food that didn't taste like anything. And I couldn't write, I couldn't read. And then I got the chance to come here because my husband back there, who's been extremely supportive, taking care of our child while I've been here, was here for a reading. And while we were here for a few short days, I wrote a poem for the first time since my mother died. And so it's still about my mom's death, you guys, but I thought I would read it to close. 13 months you've been dead, and here I am still trying to fix you. Waking in the morning with a cure in my mind, for the cancer, yes, and all the old ills too, all the things you never reconciled. I want to lock you in a padded room called health. I too want to draw your body into some other rubric. My daughter refuses to sleep alone. I'm thinking of having another baby. Perhaps the next one won't enter the world on the heels of so much death. So what if they do? Isn't that always the way it happens? If not your death, someone else's. I don't know when it started, Mother, but somewhere in the day, a knot blooms in my throat and I realize I've barely been breathing. Suddenly and for no reason, I'm gasping for the air that presents itself freely to me. These strange things come upon me when I was so careful to resolve our grief. All the while, robins in the long grass pulling worms, red brushstrokes of cardinals flitting branch to feeder to branch. Even the one who's lost half his beak carries seed to his beloved when the snow falls. Thank you.
I love you as the oak loves fire on the plains. So beautiful. What a gift tonight. Please join me in a huge round of applause for Starr-McClain, Starr. Thank you so much for sharing your light with all of us tonight. I'm very excited to invite to the stage next Abigail Sharp to introduce our final reader this evening.
Hi. I'm very, very excited to introduce Seth Wang tonight. Seth said that I was permitted to do libel and slander during my intro, and I've decided to do the most slanderous thing of all, which is to speak sort of cringily, earnestly about their work. Sometimes the writing fellows at Bach get together for like a little salon. It's very cute. And in one of the first iterations of this, I remember Seth bringing up a famous line from Nabokov's Lolita: "You can always count on a murderer for a fancy prose style." So says Humbert Humbert. Seth quoted this in relation to their own project as a writer, a project in which it's not only murderers who have fancy prose styles, but also people who get murdered. I mean that mostly metaphorically. In Seth's work, the moral mythologies of the trauma plot are eviscerated in clause after clause after clause by something we might call style. But though their fiction is keenly and relentlessly aware that suffering is not a moral project, there's also no blind allegiance to the aesthetic as an alternative. The twisting pleasures and possibilities, even of the sentence, for instance, are at every turn both taken with supreme seriousness and undermined. The narrators of Seth's fiction have fancy prose styles, which can range from looping Bernhardian internet doom scrolls to the ornate Gothic ravings of an aesthete who literally bleeds from his eyes when he encounters any form of ugliness. By ugliness, that narrator writes, I refer to an umbrella term of potential allergens, including but not limited to ugly people and their ugly things, triteness, tackiness, the banal, the cliche, kitsch but not camp, failed minimalism, failed maximalism, bad taste, bad manners, bad art, and infinite other vehicles of aesthetic distress. The pleasures of the text in Seth's work emerge from a relationship between the protagonists' self-narrativizing, their grandiose narcissism, their obscene and delightful snobbishness, their transgression in all its forms, their flights of lyricism, at moments parodically ridiculous, and at other moments sublime, a relationship between all of these and the unnameable things that lurk beneath, though to say beneath is already to get something wrong, because in Seth's work, artifice is always entangled with the real, cruelty with love, beauty with ugliness. Their work is also extremely hilarious, playful, shocking, virtuosic. I'm very excited to hear them read from their novel today. Seth Wang is a writer whose fiction has appeared in Ploughshares, Gulf Coast, and Passages North. They are a winner of the 2022 Penn Robert J. Dau Short Story Prize for Emerging Writers, and were a finalist for Bomb Magazine's 2021 fiction contest. Seth has an MFA from Washington University in St. Louis, where they were the senior fellow in fiction. They are working on a novel. Seth Wang.
First of all, thank you, Abigail, for that really delightful introduction. I'm sorry to disappoint all of you. And also, thank you very much to the Fox staff. We really are so lucky to be here and to be cared for so deeply in this way. I've never been cared for this deeply in this way anyway. So, and thank you to all my fellows for this wonderful community. I'm kind of a hermit, but every time I de-hermit, I'm welcomed with open arms, like it was yesterday that they last saw me, not 2 months ago. Okay, enough of that. I have some preliminary stuff. The first is that I'm going to be reading a novel excerpt that starts halfway through chapter 2. There is a character who's only referred to with capital she, her pronouns. So for the sake of clarity, I will be referring to her as capital H as a name. My narrator's name is McKelly, and I'm going to start by giving you all an Italian lesson, and then I'll start the excerpt. Okay. So in 18th century Italy, there existed the following customs. Castrato, plural castrati, a eunuch created prepubertally for the sole purpose of singing soprano to contralto roles better than everyone else. And the second term is cichisbeo, plural cichisbe, a socially sanctioned kept boy, occasionally homosexual, of a married noblewoman whom her husband has to accept lest he be laughed at. Our hero, if you can call him that, is both. We are in Naples. The year is 1769. We're at Silvio's. I should have known. Today, Annibale put me in shapeless saffron velvet inside purple stingray coat and pants, while capital H's hair girl has all that white streaked red coiled into tentacles, sinking a miniature ship, little Venetian glass man charms holding on for dear life. Silvio loves a theme. This week it's sirens and seafood. All the ladies are in their best mermaid regalia and every boy is a fruit of the sea. I must admit, Annibale's interpretation, pulpa de riccio, sea urchin gonads in the shell, is most original, if utterly hideous and insane. Everyone else's wardrobe guy stuck to the basics. Lots of fish, lots of crabs, a fat squid, a few pretty oysters. Silvio himself is a pulpo, octopus. When he sees capital H's hair, he spends 5 minutes obsequiously milking the coincidence. Silvio's a minor nobile, a catamite, ancient. He likes them young, a scoop of baby fat still sizzling away on the hot muscle. You can always tell who's fucked Silvio because they look a little spiritually unreachable, just a touch excommunicated. Silvio was a cichisbeo too, once upon a time. His style was bosom homosexual, like a cursed doll you whisper your schemes to. He hopped from Patrizia to Nobildonna to Viscontessa until he realized he could whore himself out to all of them at the same time. Now, twice a week, he throws casino parties in his home for the most important women in Naples and his newest generation replacements, a flock of backstabbing beauties who just need a wing to be taken under. I bet that leaky asshole has glugged at least half the cocks here. Not mine, however. I'm far too old, and even when I was still his type, capital H had me on a short leash. No one pets this dog without her blessing. I think about what breed I'd be while capital H wipes the floor at cards with these cunts, gender neutral. I conclude I'm physically a Bractobourbonai, muscles, sad face, human eye color, but spiritually a red sable Pomeranian whose great-great-grandmother was a wolf. That's what most women in this room want for a Chichis-Bayo, by the way, a dog she can fuck, a man-dog chimera she can keep at the foot of her bed, a thick, hunky neck she can hang a diamond collar around. I'm being metaphorical, but I'd be unsurprised if capital H has had the prince literally, alchemically breed her some. Dungeons of long-legged greyhound men she makes race and fight each other in the moonlight. This Nobildonna to my right would like that, I bet. This neurotic blonde. After 18 years with capital H, I've developed a nose for who's into what. Smells like bestiality. I can even usually get it down to the animal. I bet this blonde has a well-trained fetcher waiting for her at home, involuntarily drooling at the ricotta. Donna Doggy Diddler catches me looking at her. I grin at her 1/8 wolfishly. She smiles back uneasily, then goes back to her cards. Her Chichis-Bayo's much older than her, a family pervert who's chaperoned the poor girl since she was 15, probably. From the maggoty tension between them, it's obvious he walked in on them at some point, not clear when, and that he invokes this incident when he wants something. They're playing the game where spectators decide what you bet. Possessions, money, lovers. No one ever picks anything interesting, so in lieu of attention paying, I diagnose people's perversions silently. Shit-eating, cross-dressing, pederasty, cross-dressing auto-pederasty. I get to crushing as an insect small animals via shoe before I stop giving a shit. Withdraw into my consciousness for the rest of the game. I'm ejected forcibly from my reverie by a hyenic cackle. It's coming out of a dirty blonde Viscontessa with a sensual snaggletooth and an evil sequin of a mole. Before her lies the Queen of Clubs, the Eight of Diamonds, and the King of Hearts. To my right, Madama Mutt Molester starts feverishly trembling. I flex my bicep in a way I hope confers calming energy, but she bursts into tears. Her Chichis-Bayo looks away, embarrassed. Silvio undulates over so he can investigate all the fuss. He kneels at the crying blonde's side, peers at the grinning dirty blonde's winning spread, whistles. That's not good, he says. We know, Silvio, snaps Princessa Puppy Palpator's Chichis-Bayo. Everyone continues to ignore him. Silvio takes the girl's hands and looks up in her eyes. As he has with 3 decades of milk-fed, milk-scrubbed pearl pacifier brats, he talks to her like she's just killed a lady-in-waiting in a rage, and he's her family's discreet head butler who will make the whole thing go away. Tell Silvio, he says soothingly, what did you lose? She wipes her lip, sniffs. From her left nostril dangles a topaz of snot. My box at the San Carlo, she says, and my quartz necklace. On cue, it glitters on her cleavage. An incredible piece, truly. The smoothest stones I've ever seen, and so translucent I can't tell what's quartz and what's tits wet. And my dog. Everyone turns to look at the hideous yelp I let out. Sorry, I say, sorry. I try to scowl, but my mouth won't stop smiling, and I have to cover it with my sleeve. Down there, in the tablecloth, capital H's shoe finds my right foot. I have a bad habit of kicking my heels off under tables, so all I'm wearing is hose. Her emerald-encrusted toe pins the palm of my foot to the table post, digs it in like a dagger. Your dog, huh? Says Silvio, empathetically. I bet you love him very much. Tee-hee, I'll bet. What's his name? Romeo, she says, and even capital H's toe on my foot can't stop me from screeching like a back alley seagull. She can have the rest, but not him. Silvio gets up. He walks over to the Viscontessa and kneels beside her. She peers down at him with a hard little smile. He beckons for her to lean forward. She covers their whispers with her fan, sirens, group bath, pornography approaching. Her hair looks like it smells of lemon and honey and tobacco and feels like a pillow of ostrich feathers bitten open over your face and neck. A dirty blonde spring uncoils to dangle mockingly like a jester's bell just shy of her cleavage. On her right tit's upper right quadrant, right before armpit territory, a mole disappears into the cloth every time she breathes. That one really does look like a sequin, like it's simply stuck there as she rolled that way in bed. Oh, I know what she likes. I know exactly. The Viscountess's black leather toe curls pre-orgasmically as her fan flutters to a stop. Silvio sits back on his heels. His face is serene, but his trembly ankle betrays him. It's a delicate operation. This is how he keeps the company, he does. When the girls gamble away chunks of their lives, Silvio's there to talk things down to something less apocalyptic, so they keep coming back. The Viscontessa looks around the room, slowly, coyly, smiling with one side of her mouth. Those beauty marks like punctuation in a smutty letter. Nice. I scribble down the line with a mental quill in case I fit in a memoir before I kill myself. She winks at me barely perceptibly. Then she looks at Silvio and shakes her head. The nervous blonde makes a horrible noise. Silvio sweats. Fulfilling her need for sexually non-threatening father figure ass-licker priest has been lucrative, and losing the nobildonna because of this stupid dog means 2,000 fewer ducats of patronage monthly, one fewer source of gossip, one less finger, and one less proverbial pie. It's okay, says a brunette with a pug's nose and a spaniel's hair. I wonder if they've ever experimented. You can get another. The entire table winces, most of all Silvio, who has to close his eyes at the lack of tact. The nervous blonde tosses her thankfully melted affogato at her idiot friend, then departs, wailing. Her Chisbeo sits at the table, staring at the King of Hearts until he looks up. Whatever he sees in capital H's eyes makes him practically stumble over his chair to chase after the blonde, calling her name. I'd better go too, says the tactless brunette. The affogato missed. The porcelain is now being swept by a silent, gorgeous sodomite into a little pan with a silver-handled brush like the tail of a rabbit. Poor girl doesn't know their friendship has already ended. Silvio, says the Viscontessa, flashing that snaggletooth. Though her tone is plausibly deniable, the way he says her name in response dispels all illusions about any equality in their relationship. Tell her my staff will be bringing that dog here. You have plenty of cages, Silvio, don't you? Go fetch a cage, he says unreadably to one of his staff. The big iron one we keep in the Incarnadine library with the removable, right, exactly. A lawyer arrives shortly with a contract on a silver platter, the deed to the nobildonna's box at the San Carlo. A few minutes later, the tit-sweat quartz necklace wobbles in suspensefully on a brocade pillow embroidered with a spider web, the silver thread used as thin as the real thing. Even the most jaded mouth at the table moos appreciatively. Clever, clever Silvio. He's all about attention to detail, presentation. He puts it on her himself as the silent, gorgeous sodomite bends a knee before her, a hand mirror ribboned to his face. On her, the impossible quartz beads look less like tit sweat than your tears collected in her cleavage. I am in love. I need her. I absolutely have to fuck her. I need her to empowder me beneath that boot like the salmon bouffanted she-toad 2 seats down does locusts and millipedes, probably. Luckily, a night with McKelly is in the cards, literally. That's what you stand to win if you beat capital H, alongside her fire opal firefly choker, her hunting lodge in the Vesuvian foothills, 5 of her husband's racehorses, Arabian, freshly destallioned, midnight red. Romeo is even more perfect than I could have imagined. Not the expected handsome, loyal hunting dog, but an enormous tawny mastiff, what can only be described as labia melting off his fine, furry skull. I bet that feels good. No wonder the nervous blonde is weeping, eyes pink as his droopy lips under that velvety layer of down. My God, it must feel like some advanced form of lesbianism. My baby, she screams when she sees him, my poor baby. She did not believe the Viscontessa would have her men drag him out of her frilly bedroom and cage him here. She's used to a circle of gentility where women's cruelties are silkier, smilier. This sort of man-browed sadism is new to her. She throws herself to all fours on the carpet and grasps her poor baby through the bars, just like that, breasts and knees on the dirty rug in front of everyone. The way she clutches his arm from wrist to elbow, a bar cutting an ugly red welt into her fairy nose, embarrasses us all. She keeps stealing these desperate glances at him as we all suffer through another game. She sat down after being convinced to play another round to win back Romeo, a suggestion from Silvio, his first achievement of the evening. While that and the buffet he's laying out, lobster, cream puffs, nipples of a bunch of different Venuses. At the other tables, the ladies stuff their faces like piglets with perfect manners, practically licking the plates held aloft by their chichisbe. I'm open-mouthed chewing a cream puff when the nervous blonde loses with finality. By now, she's ceded to Viscontessa Snaggle a villa, another necklace, and some garden peacocks. She gets on her knees, buries her face in the Viscontessa's lap. Please, she's repeating, blubbering, digging her face into her crotch so ravenously, I ask everyone with my eyes to see if they see what I see. I'll give you anything else, just not him. In a burst of manic scheming, the nervous blonde looks up. She arranges her face, through the tears, into a disgusting, hopeful rictus. Besides, she says, he's very difficult. He only obeys me. You'd have to get someone to train him. He bit my little cousin once because the kid was eating cake too close to him. The Viscontessa doesn't scream or shove or slap her. She lets the blonde tire herself out. The excuses getting more desperate and outrageous. The breed's dangerous. Romeo has a highly contagious cross-species syphilis. Then she tucks a stray strand behind her ears, folds the girl's hand in hers, plants a kiss on each tear-stained little cheek. My dear, she says, hotly, darkly, so intimately my tailbone bristles like a cat's. Jesus, he can't be that hard to train. You just put cream in your cunt. The ladies gamble away ancient erotic pottery, a bundle of love letters, and a hideous assortment of heirloom engagement jewelry as Silvio tries to calm down the nervous blonde in the study. Only the greenest of rubes take up Silvio's offer to talk in there. I should know. I was one of them. This was before I met Capital H. I was a chorus boy, a nobody who for the night had caught the eye of a somebody, a baronessa in her 50s. I was her Valentine. At the coffee house the chorus boys and ballet girls liked, she'd picked me up with the female cradle robber classic, Come Tell Me Why Your Eyes Are So Sad. We were opening the season with Lo Chiacchierone. My backdrop-faced compatriots snickered as I escorted her to her carriage. We arrived at Silvio's. She gambled for 10, lost 500, then asked Silvio if there was somewhere private we might talk. Oh, there was indeed. Wall-mounted candlelight, Marian Grotto stylings, dim wall-spanning mirror facing bed, threatening to reflect all. My study, said Silvio, despite the lack of books and desk, for when I want the world to take a nap. Then he left. I got going, discovered she was a screamer. I hushed her. She started laughing. Angry, I put my hand on her mouth. She bit my hand and slapped me. I gave her an F sharp. Scream as loud as you want, she said, happily, pulling me by one ear to the wall. They can't hear you. Then she was done talking to me. She gestured grandly to the little tray with all the tinctures and powders that you could swallow and snort to remove your inhibitions and loosen your tongue and go and go and go until it didn't even feel good anymore. It was just an itch you needed to scratch. When we left, 2 hours later, people were still gambling away. No one looked up except a Patrizio with a pale fat head and a black wig, eyes like a dead man's, who winked at me. I saw him again 2 years later after my career was long over, when I'd been serving Capital H for a year. It was my first night back at Silvio's. On my way to piss, I passed him, the fat head with the dead eyes. There was no mistaking what he whistled at me. In our audition days, as a sort of calling card, us unknown chorus boys would hum a signature song while making, as it were, the fat lady sing. Mine was the presto movement of Vivaldi's Summer Concerto, vamp till ready, bars 113 to 116. Not to brag. Valentine's Day 2 years ago, he said, unfazed by my glare, I never forget a study session. He pointed at the enormous emerald curtains at the far end of the room. At their sides, 2 of Silvio's boys, he was going through a scrawny phase, struggled with the thick theatrical cables. They trembled open, the drapes. onto, instead of a stage, the boudoir where I'd fucked the Baronessa. They got going on the bed. 60-something Marchesa, 19-year-old Chichis-Bayo. I knew him. We all knew him. It was that season's heartthrob, the breakout star of Versace, Mr. Titular himself. Back then, I still religiously, pathetically followed opera gossip, self-hatred, masochism, who the fuck knows. And him I followed in particular. My jealousy was existential, literally, flayingly so. I was skull-fucked by his golden, muscular C6 every time I refused to sing. His lung capacity laughed in my face, doing trills while I wheezed on the chamber horse. And there he was, the guy whose name unfailingly shat poisonous spiders all over my brain, fulfilling his mistress's every degrading order, every humiliating demand ringing clear as one of his famous whistle notes, deaf to the insults and fantasies and directions hurled at him by the same people he left weeping 3 times a week. Of course I joined in. I joined in immediately. I verbally abused him so sexually violently I frightened the elder perverts. When she at last let him climax, I booed the loudest, laughed harder than anyone when she made him, still eking, get on his knees and do the aria he must have been sick to death of trotting out. But the best part was when the whole room pretended like nothing happened after the two came back. We all performed our parts perfectly. The air crackled with held, giddy laughter. It was then that I had a little epiphany about this study. It wasn't about the voyeurism, which was tame, simple-minded, bourgeois, nearly as quaint as cuckoldry. It was not even about how boring, power. It was about the orgiastic, blood-drunk, bloodbath, blood-oath intimacy of conspiracy against the butt of the joke of the day. That's why the Viscontessa put up the dog for another bet, and why everyone has joined him and is now, or everyone has joined and is now playing for Romeo. It's not that they suddenly want to fuck him, although a couple girls are visibly considering it. It's the age-old homosocial bonding ritual of tying a bitch down and scrubbing the scales from her eyes. They party harder as his mistress's tantrum continues. Why does everyone think I fuck him? She's screaming at Silvio in the study. Why is everyone always talking about her dog? All sorts of self-incriminating protests too much. And because Silvio is smart, because that's his other promise, his unofficial motto, there's no boring nights at Silvio's, because someone always ends up being the cream filling of the evening, because he's the secret keeper who's made the sick amusements of noble women his art, Silvio lets her scream herself out, this girl who has just gambled away in one night, her land, her jewels, her dignity, her shame, and her lover. You know, says one of her backstabbers, when I had her over for dinner, she just kept calling him over and feeding him scraps the whole night. Every dish she'd call him over under the table to try some. Romeo, Romeo, Romeo. Romeo, 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 moans another girl mockingly. On the floor, the poor confused dog starts to howl. The girls all laugh and say his name, Romeo, 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 as he barks on and on and on. The way the night turns out, capital H gets the dog, and the Viscontessa gets me. On my way out, rubbing the Viscontessa's elbow like an erection-prolonging relic, I turn so I can reassure Romeo falsely with my eyes. A last rite, you could say. Peace be with you, son, etc., before capital H does to him some unspeakable horror. But Romeo's already looking at me. And he looks at me like a man wearing the skin of a dog. More than mastiffs already look like men wearing the skins of dogs, I mean, which is usually in a bored, temporary, consensual way. Whereas Romeo's man has clearly been in there for a while, but not so long that he can't still feel pity and contempt, which is all his eyes have for me. Offended, I steer the Viscontessa to the door. It occurs to me on the threshold that dogs aren't capable of contempt. Oh God, what if that really was a man, sewn or glued or worse into the skin of a dog because of alchemy or gambling debts or pure aristocratic perversion, condemned to a ghoulish parody of bosom companionship with a spoiled rich girl, and I just bumped him down a few circles in hell? But when I look back, there's no pity, no contempt, just the dumb animal glaze of something that's like nothing but a dog. He doesn't even seem to understand the bars. They're just another texture on which to rub his face. I'm wearing the dirty blonde's legs as a belt even before the footman closes the carriage doors, her arms as earmuffs, her breasts as a neck brace. I forget about the dog. She's wearing just those boots. I get down on my antiquity-grade abdominals and lick a clean spot experimentally. She asks me what I'm doing. "Cleaning your boots, madam," I say. I relish how different the words taste from what I usually like and what capital H's friends make me do. The Viscontessa snatches her boot back. "Are you joking?" she says. "This is Spanish leather. Get up." She tells me with a finger to go stand by the wardrobe. As she rummages in the trunk at the foot of the bed, I squint. Her heels are not the Inquisition chic needles I was expecting, but cloppy equestrian blocks. I notice then the subject of all the paintings hanging around. I realize the leather accoutrements hanging on her wall are meant literally. And I see, as she puts them on the bed, the hyper-realistic horse mask and the enormous gleaming ivory penis with straps. The horse looks like me to a tragicomical degree. Dun skin, black hair, crazed gray eyes like the stables on fire. There's a crack in the penis, veins singed black by bacteria. So she wants to play horsey, fine. I don't bend for men, but for the right lady, I'll giddy up. I put the horse mask on over my mane and stick my ass out, waiting for her to lube up the ivory. But no, she says. She holds out the dildo to me and performs an air hand job. I peek. It's hollow. I slide it on. As I'm fastening the buckles, I'm surprised by a small stubby something and look over my shoulder to see a glossy blue-black tail pluming out of my perfect buttocks. I feel a tug in front. The enormous hollow ivory horse cock is too tight for my erection, and it chafes as she impales herself at the tip. She squelches away on the ivory as I curl up inside. It feels bad to be this wrong about someone's proclivities. I have few talents to be proud of, but this one hurts. The rules of the bet were that I service the Viscontessa tooth as long as she likes. When I finally remove the hollow ivory dildo, my cock is raw, the harness-shaped welt dug into my groin almost purple. Outside, birds are getting back at her for screaming. Yes, she was a screamer, obviously. When she summons the carriage, the dawn's turned that nice, sleepy blue before the sun ruins everything, the one everyone's woken up into and wished at least once in their lives that the sky looked like this all the time. I bet people living in those oriental cities where everything's been painted this blue must live actual, fulfilling lives full of pathos and friends, the blue that makes it easy to forgive the head on the pillow next to you. And I hate the Viscontessa and the footmen and even the horse itself, an obese, pot-bellied eunuch, the kind of eunuchs I hate the most, fucking balding. I didn't even know horses could bald, for fuck's sake, for ruining the shade of blue for me and for reducing the number of things that made life doable next to zero. I'm dumped unceremoniously on capital H's gravel driveway. Ugolino is holding open the door, a candle spitting angrily in his fist. Beside him, the suspiciously shirtless Alessandro, 13, aims black magic at me with his eyes. But I'm in no mood to give a shit. They usher me back to my room. They're rough about it, too, pulling me at the collar, scuffing my Achilles tendon with their shoes and whatnot. Capital H is waiting for me, in furs before the fire. She turns. "How is the Cavaliere?" "The Cavaliere? What us girls call the Viscontessa," she says, for her exceptional horsemanship. "Springy," I say, "supple, quite the spring chicken. And you? Signore Romeo show you a good time?" "A fine achievement in animal husbandry," she says. "Such a waste, what I had to do." "Oh, do tell," I shit myself in anticipation. "I gave him back." Gave him back? Though 18 years in capital H's diamond collar has taught me better, I let my rage show. Just for one naughty second. A quick sip of life before I sink back below my blank, gorgeous nothing. "You gave him back?" "Oh, Mick Kelly," she says. "Darling, let's think. For once, just a little. Let's use our imagination, What on earth am I to do with a dog? Pet it? Walk it? Fuck it? Only little girls fuck dogs. For women of a certain age, there's only one correct choice, which I made. It may not seem like it, but it is. Tonight, halfway through our friend's wet and weepy reunion, she will find herself, for the first time, at a crossroads. Does she go ahead with it, knowing every swipe of Romeo's indefatigable tongue will show on her face the next time she sees her friends? Or does she stop out of shame, forbidding her best friend his favorite treat without explanation, so that forever he torments himself with what he did to be such a bad boy? Choice paralyzes her. "Down, Ro," she says, batting his face away. "I mean up, get up." His saliva and spent accumulates. Everywhere she turns, she stumbles over a coiled rope of spit. At last, after 3 months in this agonizing, desperate limbo, unable to meet his eyes, she sends him away to the country. Romeo, heartbroken, goes mad. He dies of a pistol wound to the face when he mistakes the farmer's wife for his former mistress. Everyone unanimously decides to spare our heroine the news. That psyche, they all agree, is not stable enough to handle all that. Her parents, at last, find her a husband. It's been a little hard when the eligible young bachelorette is a reputed fucker of dogs. But what the hell, thinks her fiancé, a girl who will fuck dogs is a girl who will fuck me. Their wedding crackles on the horizon. 21 sunsets, then that's it for freedom. She waits until she can no longer. At last she brings home a dog, the second ever, the last ever dog, her swan song dog, a dog with none of Romeo's and her intimacy, their baby, it's just you and me against the worldliness, a dog she made sure to be as different from Romeo as possible, a stupid little toy poodle with soulless teddy bear eyes. She refuses, of course, to name it. Shame cherrying clitorally, she gets in bed, raises her skirt, and smears on the chicken liver puree she had cook prepare. Either innocently or maliciously, he's arranged crackers on the plate, a small ramekin of green onions. She lies back, closes her eyes. A tear, inexplicable, slides down her cheek. In the southwest drawing room, the toy poodle raises its matted doll head and sniffs the air. Little nails hit the polished oak. Little feet turn the corner. She's given the staff the night off, so every echoes twice as loud as usual. Her family has a very long hallway, long enough for the liver to go from lukewarm to cold. A mushy gray-pink piece crumbles onto the sheets, gets grease everywhere. Lying there, another wet pink-gray crumb blotting her asshole, waiting for something that sounds, it occurs to her, exactly like a rat, to scrabble down that hallway and hop into bed with that little panting, grunting, full-body pummel, then scritch towards her like a four-legged tarantula. She is suddenly slapped by the cold fish of reality. She chucks the liver in the corner just in time. She's getting married, after all, and only little girls fuck dogs. So you see, McKelly, no pouting. Yours was a noble sacrifice. Come here and show mommy your Vivaldi. Thank you.
There's never a dull night at the Fine Arts Work Center. Seth Wang, everybody. Thank you. So please, everybody, enjoy a final glass of wine, mix and mingle. We really appreciate you all being here this evening, and we look forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks. Thanks, everybody.